Hello and welcome to this tutorial or video commentary of how I created Toxin from the Spider-Man universe or the Venom universe. So I start off with the very basic head tool from ZBrush, planes tool. You can find that in the light box up there. And what I'd like to do first off, because I think every time I work with this, it's always set to Dynamesh as on. So the first thing I like to do is come into the Dynamesh, drop it to 80, 88, put the blur down to 0. Yeah, so first thing I do is I will be taking the ears off because they don't need ears for this character. And just smooth that out and then hit Control and re-Dynamesh it. And then I'll take the eyes out as well. And I like to put on the symbiote, I like to make the lower jaw larger than the upper jaw. And that's so I can put in a big mouth opening here, which is what Toxin has. So we're just going to carve out a mouth quick. Interior of the mouth, like so, and then just Dynamesh it again. And I'm just trying to clean up the planes that we had from the head plane model that we started with, like so. I still want to keep a general head shape, so I'll leave it like that. As you can see from the reference, Toxin is kind of like Carnage and Venom mixed together. And he has a green tongue in this example, but so we're going to add a green tongue just to make it look different from the other symbiotes. So I'm just going to, using the clay build-up brush, just carve out a inner mouth, and then bring in a jawline. From the reference you can see that the lower jaw is actually quite thin, so we don't need a lot of geometry here. We can make this quite thin. If I bring in the damn standard Alpha 47, I can just carve out a jawline in here. And there's plenty of different ways to make your character jawline. I just do it this way because it's the quickest way. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pinch the front end of it a bit more. And then on the top, just going to pinch it in as well. So it's more like a beak rather than a normal jaw, because of all those teeth that are going to be stuck in there. And then what I'll also do is I'll add some flat plane in the front here, and that will just remind me that the face goes there. And then I'll just come in, start adding some more geometry, some more clay build up to the side parts, down the neck. Add some of these tendons here. So as you can see, very quickly we can build up our character's head in no time. So, just playing around with it using very, very simple tools, a move, damn standard, and clay build up, we can get the overall shape we want. There we go. Now with my other sculpt of Carnage and Venom, especially the Carnage one, I had some lattice work going on with the side of the mouth, but for this one I'm going to leave it more like a jaw, a massive jaw that's just opening up without that lattice work that you see on my other ones. So it'll be, again, just to make it different from the other ones I've already created. Just going to block out some more of this back of the head section. And we'll pinch in the sides here, the back, and then I'll just add some more forms. It's all about getting forms and all the forms you want before moving on to detailing. I will spend at least 80% of the time working on forms before I even think about starting to do any detail work to it. And that's why in my time-lapse videos you'll see a lot of ZBrush blocking in the videos, because it's more about blocking in than it is about the final details, really. Final details will take no time at all normally to finish. Okay, just get the and build up. Just come in here, we want to just make a little bit of a cheek, maybe, in here. Now I'm not going to sculpt all the body, I'm going to just sculpt the bust of this character for now. And I'll show you my technique I use to do that. I'm just going to make slightly bigger at the back. He's quite bulky in the image that I have in the reference. So what we'll do is we'll keep that bulkiness. We'll make him kind of big bodied. Just add a little bit of form detail in the mouth there. There we are. Now it's going to look a bit weird until really weird, until we get the teeth in. But just bear in mind that there is going to be teeth for this character, so he won't look too bad. And a huge tongue. We're going to make a huge tongue for this character. Big green tongue, so you can see its toxin rather than the other symbiotes. Because there's not much that actually makes it different from the other ones, apart from when you go further down towards the body, the hips, then it starts turning into a different color. So it's red at the top, and then it'll go more dark blue or black, as in the reference. But we're not going to go that far down, so we won't have that sort of visual key on the toxin. So we'll need to make sure that his tongue is green so that people can identify which character he is, basically. They all seem to have this really weird smile thing going on at the top here at the corners of the mouth, so I'm just going to push and pull some sort of design, some sort of facial shape there, and then come back in with the clay build up and just work around this neck area a little bit more. Add a bit of a Adam's apple. Using the move brush, just tidying him up a bit. I might take it a little lower down, so I'm just going to append a sphere. And I'm going to place it where I would place the chest area. And just scale it up a bit, like so. And come down to the geometry tab, hit the Dynamesh, but make sure the blur is off. Also make sure it's down to about 72. Hit the Dynamesh tab, turn on symmetry, then using the move tool, we're just going to move this into a shape. So his spine will come down and along to the back, like that. And you just grab the clay builder and you start sculpting some basic forms again. So the clavicle bone will be here. And you can be quite adventurous with your brush strokes at this stage, because we will define it later on, much later on. So if you want to go really defined and go crazy with it, and go straight ahead. But just bear in mind anatomy and stuff like that when working, because we're building in the anatomy now. I'll just add another sphere. And these are going to represent the shoulders. So I'll just place this where I would place the shoulders. Keeping the head. Should be about 3 head heights between. So you should have it there. And I'm just going to mirror this over to the other side. So I'm just going to go subtool, mirror, and merge it as one. Now you can see it's not actually centered here, this piece. So if you ever get into that situation, all you got to do is come in here, modify, and mirror it over. And if that doesn't work, just undo those. Come down to deformation, mirror it, in geometry, mirror it. Again, it should work. I don't know why it's not working. Strange. Maybe turn off this one. Yeah, turn off the local symmetry and then turn it back on once you've done. We just want to make sure everything is nice and mirrored over, so we don't have to worry about difficulties later on. Let's grab down standard. I'm going to now just try and cut in some of these shapes with the down standard. Again, not too worried about the cleanliness of it yet. That's where the ribs will be. And we're going to bring these ribs down, out. Like that. And we'll just round out this area a bit. Trying to follow the lines of where the muscles sit. Just add some more definition here. Cut it in here. This will be the rib cage. And we just add in some basic forms in here for now. Cut in, cut out. Now I'm going to go down a little further with the body, so what I'll do is I'll grab the mask tool, which is control, and then hit the control button outside, tap and control outside the model to invert the mask, and then bring down the geometry like so. And we're just going to dynamesh it. Clean up that topology so we have a cleaner topology, and then come back in here and we just start carrying on with the sculpt. So that's it really. That's all I do most of the time. Just cleaning, sculpting shapes until it looks good, until I'm happy with it, and then dynameshing, making sure it's all good. Bring this back in. I'm gonna make them quite an arched back. And knees down, neckline in. At some point we're going to merge these two pieces. So but I find it's always better to model your character in separate parts rather than as one big piece. This way you can, if you make a mistake, you don't have to worry about the whole piece looking wrong. It's just that small piece. You can really focus on sculpting that individual piece for that model, for your model. I'm just trying to get some sort of layout of these chests areas here. They might be a bit flat, so I'll bring it out a bit more. And then in geometries, subtools, I'm just going to append 2 cylinders for the arms. Now I'm going to put these in because without them it doesn't quite make sense, and we need them in there so we can really sculpt away at this armpit area to help us. It guides us really. Let's make this quite a... Yeah, let's do that. We're just making him very bulky. Like he's hunched over, really. And again, because we've done these in separate parts, we can now move this forward, bring it down. Whereas if we were doing it all as one piece, would be very, very... we'd have to re-sculpt a lot of it, rather than just sculpt parts of it. I'm just going to use the mask tool and the lasso. Come in here and lasso this head and rotate it forwards a bit more and bring it forwards a bit more, like so. There we go. And for the shoulders, we're just going to, instead of dynameshing straight away, we're going to get the form first, the shape first, and then we'll dynamesh it later. So we've got quite big shoulders. Bring the arm out. I'm going to just mirror this over. Bring these down. So you can see, no time at all, we can get a really good shapes going here. Now I'm going to rotate these arms out. Down standard and just start adding some more forms in the sides here. So muscle areas, cutting into the model to show where the armpit would be. And just general tidy up. Yeah. And then the same thing, these arms, we can smooth it out so they're not big round circles or big cylinders, and then we can just start moving these arms into a shape of an arm. Sorry. And in the geometry, we can go to the geometry, Dynamesh. 64 resolution will be fine. And we'll just start sculpting in some land masses, muscle masses for our creature or our character. There's the bicep and the tricep. Like so. Now we're going to frame this in a way that we're going to only see kind of the top half area, so I'm not going to go too much further down the body. What I might do is just make him quite a little bit bigger on the sides, yeah, like that. We might just make the forearms of this character. We'll see. The head looks a little bit big now compared, so I'm just gonna shrink it down with a move tool, like so. And then I'm going to dynamesh these shoulders. Grab clay build-up, start just blocking in some of the muscles. Separate them into different parts. Using the move tool, move it into place. Just move them out a bit, down. If they've been really hunched and weighted. And on the back, let's work a little bit more of this muscle on the back. So again, it'll be a lot easier once I get the head connected and the rest of it connected as well. Just gonna give him a little bit of build-up of skin on the back of the neck. I'm gonna have to dynamesh him again, but this time I'm gonna bump up the resolution a little bit so it gives me a little bit more work to work with. Now I won't do this with all the body parts, mainly just the head because it's the most focal point. So we want to make sure that we can get some more detail in there before we merge it together. The rest of them I will probably keep at the resolution that they are, and then just work with it. And then if I get stuck with not enough topology, and I'll just remesh it or re-dynamesh it to give it that bit of detail that it needs, a bit more of detail that it needs really. And using trim dynamic brush, just cut some full skin away. Really get them shapes looking good. This will come up. This muscle will come up in here. And tuck in underneath there, and then this muscle will tuck in underneath the deltoid. Or the pectoral, sorry. Cool. Let's get in there. Might want to bring the parts out a bit more. these muscles come up. I want a real exaggeration of this character. Big, like the comic art we're looking at. So. Just move that head around a bit more. These chest muscles, we'll just do that. And then bring in that chest bone. And emphasize where the rest of the muscles are. It's got quite deep cuts in the chest here, so we'll try to mimic that. Again, can't do much until we until we merge them, so don't worry if it's too messy. We'll clean it all up later. There we go. Cool. Now we can come back to this neck. I'm not happy with this neck at the moment. So we're just gonna really bring out some of these key areas here. So, there we are. And just play around with this bicep a bit more. Focus on it so the camera can readjust. I'm going to solo this so I can work on these muscles here. There we go. You'll come back and clean those up later. Unhide everything. Let's have a look around. Damn standard. Just come in here and cut these lines in a bit. Just define these a bit more. There we go. Cool. Now let's let's just duplicate this arm and move it down so we could make a forearm out of it. Even though we won't see the arms or the hands, it's nice just to have it there in case we want to position it in a different way, so it's more image to work with. Standard. Oh, K build up, sorry. Just gonna carve in some sort of elbow in here. Move tool. Bring those down. Turn the hip here. Or where the hip would be. Yeah, I'm just gonna block it out, but I'm not gonna actually build on it. But you could come back any time and finish the model off and you know, use it as a game character or anything like that. But for now, I just want to emphasize the waist area a bit, because we're gonna most probably render it from about this height, right about here, as he's looking off into the distance. Yeah. This is optional, don't have to do this. This part. Oh, I'm just gonna make a quick leg area. Should bring these down. Point. And move these in a little bit. Like so. Alright. Just gonna come in here and fix this chest. Bringing it down standard. Cut. Some shapes for later. That'll do. Now we can we're almost time to merge it together. Just making some quick adjustments before doing so. Yeah, this will do nicely. Right, so next thing to do is just merge down, merge it all down really. Once we've done that, we can then dynamesh it again and then carry on sculpting. But it's usually at the stage where, yeah, we would merge it all down to collapse it because we're ready to move on to the next stage in the sculpting. And in the geometry, I think 136 will still be fine. You can go up to 176 if you really wanted, and then just control and drag. You can see we're still at a very small number, 500,000 polygons, which is ideal for what we need it for now. We can boost it later, but right now that'll be fine. Now we're just going to go ahead and do some cleanup. So collarbone will sit in here. These muscles here. Dip in here. Now this is very quick sculpting that I'm doing, but you can take your time. There's no rush to be a fast sculptor. Sometimes being a fast sculptor is a good thing, sometimes it's really bad. Well, not really bad, but it's bad because you miss out on little things that you'll pick up later, and you'll be like, oh god, I wish I'd just, spent a little bit more time looking at my model and sculpting it, instead of just speeding through. And that's a lot of people go wrong, I think, or I believe that they really just want to get things done and get things created just so they can show something. But I think it's detrimental to their learning if they do that. They need to really sit back and look at their work before they commit it, basically. So using the clay build-up, just going to clean up this model real quick. Here we are. Damn standard. Again, just emphasizing. No need to do that part if you don't want. You'll never really see it. Just gonna carry on cleaning the model we created. Just using the same tools still. No need to change the tools up. Just using the damn standard there. Some of these lines going in. And I mean, even at this point, it's still a rough model, so there's still tons you can change to it if you're not happy with it. It's only until you get later on when you start retopoing stuff and creating UV maps that's when it becomes a real pain to try to change anything that's set in stone, really. So at this point, just carry on making changes where you want to, or where you feel you need to. Don't worry too much. about the look of it just now. I mean, it's a long way from finished. Now, I tend to try not to use the soft brush or the smooth brush. There's sometimes I will though. I don't like using it a lot because I like the way the model looks when you play with the clay build-up, as if it's got a nice build-up basically, and you want that to come out onto your model. You don't want it all smoothed out. I've seen a lot of people use the smooth brush far too much in their work, and what it does is it sort of destroys the detail that you unintentionally put on your model. And you use a smooth brush. I find the best way to smooth something is to use the opposite to the brush that you have, the opposite to the add, so the Z sub, to take away the parts of the models, parts of the sculpture you want, but then keeps that sort of artistic look to it, rather than just having a smooth model everywhere. So just bear that in mind. The best way to smooth is to Z sub. It's not always a good idea to use a smooth brush all the time. Okay, so it's coming together quite nicely. So just still defining the model, defining the design of this character and whatnot. It could take a little time to get the right shape that you want out of your model, but it's worth it. Just taking your time. Tuck it under there. This one goes over here. This one underneath. Don't forget to keep moving around your model as well. I think it's very important to keep your model on the move the whole time. Don't just sit back in one area too long and work too much on one area too long. You want to be able to see the overall picture of your model as it comes together. And sitting in one area will it won't make your model look good if you concentrate too much in one specific place. Now, when it comes to fine details, that's a different story. You want to make sure it looks good before moving on. But for these very quick concept sculpts, no need to work too much about the fine detail. You can always add that later on. If you're doing concepts, you can add that later on in the post in Photoshop. So I'm still trying to find a nice shape for that. You can see it's quite flattened back here. I'm going to move them out a bit more in the back. Really arch out that back. And then define some of that muscles in the back here. We're just gonna carry on going. This is probably where I would, like I said, this is probably where I'd spend the majority of my time in this section, just making sure it looks good. So, carry on. If I go quiet, it's just because I'm concentrating on the work here and want to make sure it looks good or it's working right, so I apologize if you don't hear me speaking for a bit. That'll do. Shaving those areas down. There we go. Getting there. I always have a little bit of trouble creating the chest areas a bit. One of those areas I need to maybe touch up my skills in a bit. My anatomy. Let's just come up here and go through there. It's always good to learn your anatomy properly before starting to sculpt. It doesn't mean you have to learn every single bone and where they are, and more landmarks. When I say learning your anatomy, just landmark shapes, especially if you're not really keen on sitting there for hours reading books on the bones and muscles and stuff. If you can research by looking at what other people else have done or realistic models, cuts and anatomy books and stuff like that, then you'll be fine. You don't need to know every single bone and the muscles in the body. I don't think anyway. I mean, there are some that would say that you would need to know everything, but I'm just saying from my experience. I've not had to learn all the bones in the body for this. You get some, if you just get enough references of bodybuilders and skeletal structure, then you can pretty much do this. But if you want to, you can also go ahead and learn all the bones in the body if you want. Be quite a good thing if you want to know everything about that. So you can know exactly what you're doing with it, but landmarks more key. It's much more key to have good landmarks. There's shapes and silhouettes. a lot of professionals could probably see the issues with your model if you don't have proper anatomy and stuff. But the average person will most likely never really know the difference. So just bear that in mind. If you're going to show your work to a company, you probably want really good, like, anatomically correct stuff. But for the average person who likes just looking at art, you can probably get away with not having to learn all the stuff that goes on. Now I'm going to sculpt that area in the middle there asymmetrically rather than symmetrical later on. But for now I'm just going to leave it symmetrical. I tend to do that a lot. I like to have everything quite symmetrical at the beginning, and then near the end, once I know I'm happy with it, I can then start making asymmetrical shapes. And that's generally how we would work. You would work in a studio. You would try to make it you would try to go as far symmetrical as possible until you needed to go asymmetrical. Or if the model was completely asymmetrical, then that's a whole different story, and another whole different headache. But it's very rare. I find it's very rare to have a character that's completely asymmetrical. They normally start off as a symmetrical model and then turn out to be asymmetrical later. There we are. So we're coming up to nearly an hour on this character, and we've gotten quite a bit done, I'd say, which is good. We've got the basic form of our character done. Now, if we were doing a pose, I'll probably pose it later. But if we were doing a posed character, you'd probably take a lot longer because, again, we're talking asymmetrical. You'd have to, plan that a lot more than if you're doing a symmetrical character. Tight in there. Not to worry. It's going to be in the back. You probably won't see it. I'd have to come back in here and change that if I was to do it for a game ready character. But for this guy, it should be fine. Clean this jawline up a bit. Down. Yeah, just gonna add some cheek. To him. These are damn standard. Cut into these parts here a bit more. Again, and standard, just defining some of these landmarks again, now that they're a little bit more detailed. You can use a standard brush and just make sure we can get this build up under here correct. There's some things you can't do with a clay build up, so sometimes you will need to resort to standard brush maybe to help you out. As well as other varieties of brushes. We're just using the standard, sorry, to cut in some of these shapes quick. There we are. We're just gonna add a bit more up here. Might just bring this chest out a bit more. Or I really want to pop his chest out a bit more. Like that. Like it's painful, nearly. You know? And then just links into it a little bit. Just gonna bring this out. Yeah. We can really go to town with the damn standard and define these landmarks more. And there we are. Yeah, I mean, you can go to town with the damn standard and define some areas where you want to add more detail later, or simple brush strokes sometimes will just work, you know, like you don't need to have like an amazing alpha. Sometimes a little dib here or a dab there of a damn standard, and it works perfectly fine. There we go. Just gonna build this area up here. Run it back. Have a look. A fat fold. That sort of bodybuilder fat fold that they get. The back of the neck there. Where the skull kind of looks like it's sitting right on it. Gives it that impression that he hasn't got a neck, sort of thing. Focus a little bit on these wrists. You know, if you added the hands, it would look pretty cool. It would look like it sat better. But because we're not going to add the hands, we're just going to leave them like that. Add a bit more form in here. Like so. I'll have to play around here a bit, see what's going on here. Just for now, just going to add some indentations. Yeah. Use the move brush, just move it around like that. There we go. So now we have our Toxin body done. Nearly. Almost. Like, almost. What I'll also do on occasion is I will, because I get so tunnel visioned with the same texture on the model, it's kind of hard to see the birds from the trees, or the wood from the trees, sorry. So what I'll do sometimes, I'll just use a poly skin on the model just to see if it all looks good. And here I can now see this way to build up here. You can move this neck back quite a bit. Like so. There we are. Yeah, just have a look around the model in a different texture. Just see if everything's still working good or looking good. You can see here, let's start this area here a bit. Like that. Now, the one thing I will say when modeling is to not use a certain material. Basically, there's this material in ZBrush which is just the worst material. If you ever opened up ZBrush for the first time, you would have probably seen it. It's the default texture, or the default material, which is this matte cap red wax, and I don't know why ZBrush is still using this. It's horrible. It looks horrible. You can't see any of the details. It's kind of makes everything look flat. I would always recommend starting off with the startup material, this one, rather, because it's just more pleasing on the eyes, really. Just going to connect that to the collarbone there. The aesthetic. Yeah, I wouldn't use that other material. It's just really bad. Everyone's done it to start off with. No one's really been told why. People pick up that it's the wrong material later on, but I'm just letting you know that for me in particular, I find it really bad if people show their model using that clay build, that red clay material. So there's a little bit of a helpful tip right there. Just gonna clean up here a bit. There we go. Cool. Right, so when we come back to our second session, or our second part, of this sort of walkthrough, I will show you what I do to get this ready for final detailing. We're currently in the mid-section detailing, mid-detailing at the moment, which is blocking in and mid-detailing at the same time. But once we come back, I'll show you. I'll put the teeth in and the tongue. It'll make him look a bit more terrifying with some teeth in, and then we can get on and I'll show you how I do the retopo for this guy and get him ready for texturing, and then posing, rendering, and then we'll go back, and then we should be into Photoshop afterwards. And I'll just do a quick. So I won't talk too much in that one. I'll just do a quick blast through of how I'd composite it, or how I go about compositing this guy, which is the same way I composite for the rest of them, for all of them really. And that's more the fun part of doing this sort of character, or these characters, is the compositing. So yeah, we'll return in a minute to do the rest of him. Thanks.